Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk specifically about Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. And we are moving into Chapter 5, Northern Wastes. All right? So the player characters are just in a terrible position. They're in Kalaman, okay? So they're in Kalaman. All the refugees are outside the wall. That's rough. The Vogler refugees. And the player characters have returned from saving Lord Baccharis at the Steel Spring strike and helping those forces retreat. And then the player characters get back to Kalaman and they meet two undead Knights of Solamnia, Knight Caradoc and Knight Sarlamir, and they encounter them. And the introduction of Lord Soth happens, right? But then the player characters are pulled with Knight Darrett, who's the knight in training, who serves under Becklin, Knight of Solamnia Becklin, right? Who's a good knight of Solamnia, right? That's another thing that's a little rough. Is like all the male knights of Solamnia we've met are bad, like every single one, but all the female Knights of Solamnia are good. It's a little odd. It's a woke overshoot. No two ways about it, right? Like, I support woke, but woke needs to be done in balance. And there's in significant portions of this book there is a lack of balance, right? Okay, so not every D&D canon hardback is perfect, right? Actually, no D&D canon hardbacks are perfect, but there's issues, right? You run into some issues in these books. Okay, all right. So basically the player characters are pulled in by Marshall Ventry, right? And there's this meeting, okay? And it's the player characters and Darrett, okay? It's Knight Darrett, the player characters, Marshall Ventry, and Lord Baccharis, this arrogant noble from Vogler, right? And Lord Baccharis is there really to reflect on intense failure, right? Because the player characters have been failing a lot too, right? Like, they killed Caradoc and they ran off Sarlamir, right? But like, they were not successful in stopping the slaughter of the Council of Kalaman, right? So that's a failure, right? So basically, you have the player characters, and they meet with Vogler. They meet with Marshall Ventry, who, by the way, just got a very significant promotion, right? Like, all the council people are dead, right? And so she's kind of like literally the leader of the city, right? And this does, and actually, F. Wesley Snyder does this brilliant, it is shockingly helpful, like, to see how swiftly war can change things, right? So Marshall Ventry is now like the most powerful leader in all of Kalaman, and the reason why is all the leaders are dead, right? And this is very true in war. One of the things I think is really amazing is, I'll tell you right now, I think it's pretty amazing that Zelensky and Putin are both alive, right? Because there are forces around them, no two ways about it, on both sides, where, you cut off the head, the body dies, and basically both these men, there is incredible strain to put either one of them in the dirt, Russia toward Ukraine toward Russia, right? And actually also there might even be pressure within Russia, for Vladimir to not continue, right? War is harrowing. War is harrowing, right? And F. Wesley Snyder is painting this brilliant picture of how harrowing war can be. So we get to this point, right, in the beginning of the Northern Waste, Chapter 5, where Marshall Ventry sits down with Lord Baccharis. And frankly, he doesn't have much to say, and he doesn't have much influence. And the reason why is his son is missing, right? And that's taken all his vigor away, right? And that's that difference that we talked about, that difference between a practical loss and a personal loss. And these are really important in life, right? Like, we can absorb a tremendous amount of practical loss, but how much personal loss can we absorb? And that's the difference between a hero and a commoner, right? Like, heroes are those people who can absorb personal loss and still keep going. We can all absorb some practical loss and keep going, but can you absorb personal loss, right? And Lord Baccharis, this a very arrogant Vogler noble cannot, right? And so Marshal Ventry, she's still in place, and then Knight Darrett is there, and so everybody says what they think should be done. And Lord Baccharis doesn't have anything to say because he's lost all his vigor. Marshal Ventry is like, I know what we need to do. We need to fight the Red Dragon Army right here near Kalaman. Where Kalaman is surrounded. There's Red Dragon Army forces all around. Let's do what Lord Baccharis tried to do, but let's succeed, right? So let's fight the Red Dragon Army right here in Kalaman, right? And the player characters can be tremendously helpful in this, right? But Knight Darrett says, nah. Let's go north and let's solve this problem of Lord Soth, right? Let's cut off the head, right? And Knight Darrett is right. Lord Soth is the head of this whole problem, right? Well, actually, that's not 100. Yeah, that is, you know what? That is correct, right? Because you're like, oh, well, wait, isn't Tiamat the head of this problem? And that's actually not correct, okay? So who's the leader of the Red Dragon Army? Well, guess what? Tiamat's extremely powerful, but she also own a bunch of realms, right? Like, this is the whole point, right? Is she fully in Krynn, right? She's spending a lot of time in the Forgotten Realms too. Oh, and guess what? She probably up in Dominaria, having gone there with Planeswalker Liliana, right? Like, because Dominaria is connected directly to Forgotten Realms, right? By canon. Yep. Right, yeah. So Tiamat and Tiamat might have some business in some Lego worlds, right? Like, she ain't, like, Tiamat is not, her attention is not uninterrupted, right? So the real head of the Red Dragon Army is Lord Soth, right? And Knight Darrett is like, hey, let's yeet out, right? And let's go take care of Lord Soth. But then, the player characters are like, we can't just go right to Lord Soth. We don't even know where he is. And Knight Darrett is like, hey, well, I know where he is. He's at the City of Lost Names. And they're like, well, we don't know what the location of that is. And he's like, yeah, let's go north and find it, right? So there's this decision, right? Do they stay there in Kalaman and help protect against the Red Army? Or do they go north and deal with Lord Soth, right? And overcome the obstacles and the quests that'll need to be done even to get in front of Lord Soth, right? Well, what's interesting is this is a conversation that gets to be had by the player characters, and it is an interesting conversation. But what ends up happening, right, is Knight Darrett and the player characters go north, okay? And the reason they go north is, this is really fascinating. Marshal Ventry's like, you guys should get the heck out of Kalaman, because if you stay, people are going to be pissed, right? You were here and and people are pissed off, because frankly, you arrived here with a bunch of people you failed, the Vogler people, because their city burned, right? And then you failed this city, right? All of this city's leaders are dead, right? You were here. You're supposed to be heroes. You ain't doing much heroing, right? And so she's like, you guys can get on a ship, and she gives you a ship, right? And she gives you a contingent of Kalaman soldiers saying, hey, we do recognize you guys have done some significant things, and you and Knight Darrett can go up to the north. And at that point, you cross Kalaman Bay and you get up to Wrecker's Edge, right? I absolutely love the geography in Krynn. It is, and I love the geography in Dungeons & Dragons. It's one of the best things about it. It's done extremely well, right? And so, and at this point, the player characters are with Knight Darrett, and they are heading off to quest, find Lord Soth, and deal with Lord Soth. Every word you just heard is my humble opinion. But what is really important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.